to This Week in Real Estate with Jonathan Harmon. Listen in as him and other members of the J. Harmon Home Team speak about all things real estate with local experts here in the Middle Tennessee area. Be sure to check out jharmonhometeam.com for more information and how to get in touch with our amazing team. Welcome to the show.
You're good. Wow. Hang on. I like this part. Rise. Man, that's good stuff. O'clock-ish. I'm not sure exactly what time it is, but close enough. And that means it's time to talk a little bit of real estate. So this week it's just going to be me. I'm going to be talking about some stats, not quite as numerical as the last time that I did the stats update. But it's interesting. There's so much story to tell right now that's hidden in these numbers. And you know, one of the things I say all the time is that economics is just psychology with dollar signs attached to it, and that's exactly what's going on right now in the real estate market. So we had some serious dollar sign fluctuations over the last 4 years, and I mean, really, I guess if you want to go back to it. All the way back to 2009, and we can look at that as kind of a pendulum that swung a couple of different times, and so we're going to talk about where we are on that pendulum track, if you will, right now. Before we get into that, though, I do want to talk a little bit about my friend Bryan Nale over at Primis Mortgage. Bryan is the man when it comes to loans. He also happens to be a huge supporter of Spread the Positive. So we love Bryan for all kinds of reasons. Both of those are two of them, and then there's Trent. I don't know. There's like innumerable other reasons that we love Bryan.
Ones. Yep, definitely a lot of other ones.
A lot of other reasons. So let's hear from Bryan.
Hey, my name is Bryan Nale. I'm a mortgage loan officer with Primis Bank Mortgage, and I want to tell you that I absolutely love being a member of the Spread the Positive Network. It's such a great mission, and it helps bring so much positivity to our community. It's a true pleasure to be part of. There are a lot of ways to navigate financing a home, and in markets like this, having the advice of a trusted local professional is key to making sure you get the right advice for your specific circumstances. Whether you're interested in the purchase of a new home, a second home, or have a need for a refinance, I'd love to earn your trust. If I can help you nail your mortgage, call me at 615-243-3976. or visit nailyourmortgage.com, and I'll be happy to talk with you.
Primis Mortgage is a subsidiary of Primis Bank, a member FDIC, equal housing opportunity. As always, all loans are subject to approval. Primis Mortgage, NMLS number 1894879.
Let's go.
All right. Thank you, Bryan. We love you, man, and thank you for being such a supporter of Spread the Positive and of this show and of the J. Harmon Home Team. So anyway, we love Bryan. All right. So let's talk about this for a second. I'm not even really going to get into numbers as far as dollars too much today. We're going to be looking purely at activity, right? How many houses got listed? How many houses got sold? How many houses were withdrawn or expired from the MLS? And that withdrawn and expired is probably one of the more telling ones, because those are, I heard it said this one time, that those are called market rejected is another term for that. So in other words, if for whatever reason the market said, no, that doesn't work. So maybe it was price, maybe it was condition, maybe it was a combination of the two. Maybe it was just poor expectation management as far as a seller thought it should sell here and the buyers all thought it should sell here, and they could never get that gap closed up. But either way, those numbers to me are almost more telling even than the number of new listings and the number of new under contracts. So we'll get into that. I will say this. This is going to be a quarterly look back. I've got four different quarters numbers pulled, and to me, the quarters really tell the tale, because you have like different seasons within a year, right? So you can't. It's hard to compare the first quarter of any year to the second quarter of any other year, because the quarters move differently. spring is very different than the end of winter, and the end of winter is pretty different than the beginning of winter. And there's all kinds of reasons behind that. But that's so we want to compare first quarter this year to fourth quarter of last year, even though I just said that. But it does show a trend. And then we also want to compare first quarter of this year to first quarter of 22, because I think that really tells a difference. And then we'll pull first quarter of 21 in as well, and I think that'll really kind of show that pendulum swing as we were talking about. So, or as I was mentioning. So first thing I will tell you is that activity is back up. We had a little hiccup in the fourth quarter of 22, and we saw that carry over a little bit into the first quarter, and then it just kind of took off. So to give you those numbers there, first quarter of 23, so this what we just got out of, we had 2186 new listings put on the MLS. This is Rutherford County, all residential. So that's all we're looking at. So 2186 new listings compared to fourth quarter 1823. Now, comparing first quarter to first quarter, 2186 this first quarter, 2068. So we actually are up a little bit from first quarter of 22. But first quarter of 21, we had over 2,500 new listings. So we can kind of see that first quarter of last year compared to first quarter of this year, very similar. First quarter this year, 1,733 new contracts, 1,672 last year first quarter. Now, here's what's really fascinating. Average days on market first quarter of this year, 36. Average days on market first quarter of last year was 7. And it's interesting because we actually had fewer contracts written. We had fewer new listings come on, okay? We had more closings, which I haven't given you those. So closings of first quarter last year, 1,600. First quarter this year, 1,267. But what we didn't have last year were the withdrawals and expireds. So first quarter of this year, we had 400 withdrawn, 326 expired. Last year, 131 withdrawn, and only 65 expired.
Wow.
So basically, if it got listed last year, it got sold. Mm-hmm. And it got sold fast, 7 days, right? This year, it sat a little longer, 36 days, and some of them didn't get sold at all. So over 700 of this past quarter, didn't get sold, where less than 200 of first quarter 22 didn't get sold.
That's crazy.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So, I told people last year you could basically put a picture of a cow pie on the MLS and you could sell a house. And that's just not been the case this year.
Yeah.
So pricing and presentation are back. They are important again. It is important to nail the price. It is important to get that house in good condition because the market absolutely is rejecting houses now. Here's another telltale number, and I told you I wasn't going to get into pricing too much, but this is just a percentage, so, that's okay. Stick with me. Last year, and this goes along with that, nothing got rejected, right? Less than 200 houses in 3 months got rejected. And houses on average were selling 102.1% higher than list price. 102.1% higher.
Wow.
You ready for this one? This year, first quarter, houses on average were selling 96.3% of the initial list price.
Wait, what?
So whatever that first list price was last year, no matter what it was, people were getting 102+% above that. Okay, 100, not 102%, but 2% above list price. This year, we're seeing price reductions, and then they're going under contract. So they're getting 96.3% of the initial list price, and in some cases, they're not selling at all.
Wow.
So what does that tell us? It tells us, again, that it is important to get your initial list price correct or to work in a price reduction strategy on the front end because you know that if you try to push the market this year, you're probably not going to, okay? Last year, we could push the market a little bit. right? We could put it up there a little bit because houses were selling at 102% of their initial list price. This year, it's almost an expectation. So in 12 months, it's almost an expectation that prices are going to get reduced. And if they don't get reduced, they're going to sell for less than what they were initially listed. Now, here's the really fun part. From an anecdote standpoint, I don't have the numbers to show this, okay? And I wish our MLS system was dynamic enough and drilled down enough to pull these numbers. But there are absolutely listings in the last 3 months that have sold above their list price. I have 4 that went multiple offers in the last 6 weeks. 5 that went multiple offers in the last 6 weeks. And 4 of those 5 went above their list price. 1 went right at list price. So not everything is holding true to that 96.3. Right? Mm-hmm. So what is that? And what I would love to see is we have an average of 96.3 initial list to sales price. I would love to see a division of that and say, okay, of that, 10% of houses sold above list price, and 35% of houses sold at a list price, and this number of houses sold 10% below. I would love to see that breakdown. I don't have that,
Right.
But I would love to see that breakdown. I could probably create that, but it would take me a long time.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So the bottom line is you got to present the house correctly, right? And we've got to set realistic expectations. And what's really awesome, though, is that there's still activity happening, okay? 1,267 closings in this past first quarter, okay, compared to 1,600 of first quarter of 2022. So it's down, but it's not down a ton.
Right.
The big telltale number to me, though, is those withdrawals and expireds, the market rejected listings.
How many were those? How many of those were there?
So first quarter of this year, 400 withdrawn, 326 expired. So over 700 rejected. First quarter of last year, 131 withdrawn, 65 expired. So less than 200.
That's wild.
Yeah. So it more than doubled the number. The other thing that I think this really demonstrates for us, it really shows. Think about this. Why did the Federal Reserve start all this fluctuation, all this adjustment, all this purposeful pullback through higher interest rates? It's purely to curb inflation, right? That's the whole point of this. Inflation got out of control. They had done some stimulus type things to try to get through COVID and all the various surges in COVID and all the variants and whatnot. And they said, okay, we're going to do this temporarily, try to keep the economy propped up, so to speak. And they said, okay, it's time now. It's time to back off. It's time to get inflation under control, because the market had corrected itself to some extent, but yet they still had rates too low so that the market was overcorrecting that direction, right? And again, that's the pendulum, okay? It's going to swing this way because of COVID and all the various things that slow our economy down, and they're going to manipulate it through interest rates to where they flood the market with more money, and the pendulum swings this way, and now we've got inflation, right? And it's not just housing, it's on all kinds of things. I mean, we had $6 dozen eggs, you know what I mean? So we're up here, and they start to move that interest rate again to raise it, and they raised it very, very quickly last year, and it pushes that pendulum back over. And that's how we go from 102%, where we have this hyperinflation, to now we're pulling back to 96%.
Yeah.
Ideally, we have a market where we have a little bit of ability to negotiate. Our average days on market was 36, right? So we're finally back over a month that houses on average sit on the market. I've seen listings that are 90 days on market. I've seen listings that are longer than that. And that's where we start getting into those withdrawals and expireds. But what that does for a buyer is it softens the market to where you can actually negotiate. to where you can actually feel good about not just signing over your firstborn to get a house.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it. So I don't know. Is this good? Is this bad? I hesitate to really assign a moral word to it.
Yeah.
It's neither good nor bad. I think what it is it's just exactly that. It's what it is.
Yep.
And so knowing what the particular climate is, knowing what the temperature of the market is, gives you the ability to act correctly within it, right? So if you're a seller right now and you're looking at comps and you're thinking, okay, we had a house that comped ours last month sell at X, we should definitely be able to get 2, 3, 4, 5% more than what they did. You're just plain wrong. Like, you can't, it's not going to happen. Okay. If it was a real comp, if it was the same condition, same size, same neighborhood, you're not going to get 2, 3, 4% higher. It is possible in this exact time frame that you could get a little bit higher, right? And if your comp is more from like November, you could probably get a little higher, right? Because we kind of stagnated then. Okay. The other thing is, if you the flip side of that is, if you're a buyer and you want to go in and you want to try to get, if the house is comped correctly and it's priced correctly, which a lot of them are, a lot of people are finally adjusting to that, and you want to go in and try to get it for 15% less than list price, you're probably not going to win that one either, right? So we're kind of at this point where there's a little bit of negotiation, there's a little bit of wiggle room, there's a little bit of reality check, so to speak, but it's not really necessarily strong and heavy into buyer or seller market. No one is necessarily in the driver's seat in the negotiation in this. Now, there are specific circumstances where it's a unique property, it's got tremendous value built into it. Seller's probably going to be in the driver's seat on that one. They know what they've got, right? There's nothing like it. And they might still be in the driver's seat. And there's little pockets, there's little sub-markets where the seller is still in the driver's seat. Flip side of that is there are little sub-markets right now that just plain aren't moving in Rutherford County. So when we start looking at some of these days on market, a lot of those days on market are driven by very specific subgroups. That is not your starter homes. And believe it or not, that is not your 800, let's go 700 plus thousand houses. It's not the big giant ones. That is mostly made up, those 36 days on market is mostly made up right now in Rutherford County of like, I'm going to spitball it out there, say 450 to 650 houses. That's the market right now that we have an abundance of properties. That's also the market right now where we are not seeing as much, what's the word I'm looking for here, Trent? Effort, perhaps, in the preparation for the houses. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the right word. I'm not sure. Something like that. They're not quite as market ready, right? So what do you do with it? Here's what I think you do with it. I think you look at it and you understand where the market is. Is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? Yes, is the answer to that question. You can still buy and sell a house in this market. You can still get a good deal on either side of it. But I think what we have to do is we have to define what is a good deal. We have to define what is our realistic expectation. I think we also have to look and say, okay, if I've owned this house now for 4 years, I made a ton of equity. I made a ton of appreciation in the previous 3 years. And I lost a little bit at the end of this past year. But from a net gain standpoint, I'm still way ahead, like way, way, way ahead. So is this the right time for me to capitalize on that? Only you can answer that, right? And I've had a lot of conversations where people are talking about it's just a shift. So in other words, if I appreciated net 80% over the last 4 years, and I go to buy a different house, then I'm just going to shift that equity from one house to the other. And you're not wrong, right? I mean, I think that's okay. I think if we're real careful about it and we look at it and we really crack the numbers down, I think you'll find that you do come out ahead, especially immediately, like right now, because we haven't hit that spring bump appreciation yet. We're almost there. We're getting there. May is usually when it takes off. But I don't think it's going to set the world on fire this year. I don't think our May and June are going to make up, 25, 30% like they have in the past. So take a look at it. Take a look at where you are, and then be really honest about what your goal is if you're looking at a move. Do you need more space? Has your family grown? Have you added a baby? Are your family literally grown and they're running into each other all the time? Has your family shrunk for some reason? Are you an empty nester? Do you have a kid that's gone off to college? Do you? What is going on that would motivate you even to look? Maybe you just don't like your house anymore. Maybe it was a COVID buy and you don't need what you got when you bought during the COVID pandemic. Okay, well, then let's talk about that. I think it's safe to make moves right now. And Trent, I think that's the bottom line. I think that part of the hesitation, fourth quarter of last year, was nervousness, was some hand wringing. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do?
Right.
What's going to happen? And I think rates are stable-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to steadily decline a little bit, but there's ways that you can work through that. You can always refi. You can always do some other things to fix that if you buy it too high, right, at too high of a rate. But I think basically we've weathered the storm. We didn't crash out like a lot of people said. We didn't have a bubble bust like a lot of people thought that we would have. I never said that, by the way. I never said we were going to have a bubble bust. I said that's not going to happen. And I think we're at the point now where it's like, okay, this is what normal looks like. How do I land this ship, Trent?
I think you're doing a great job.
I got through all these numbers, and I'm so pumped, and I'm out of numbers at this point. I don't know how to bring it in for a landing, but here's what I'll leave you with, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, your situation is unique. Okay, your position in your home, your particular circumstances, they are unique. They are yours. Your goals are unique. So the best advice that I can give you, single best advice is find somebody that will talk to you about your goals, that will talk to you about your particular circumstance, that understands your circumstance, that understands your goals, that can fit them into all the stuff that I just went over, that can fit your circumstance into the current climate and give you great advice, right? And it really is just a series of if-then statements. If your goal is to do this, then you should do this. If your goal is to do this, then you should wait and do this. If your goal is to do this, then there is no waiting. We need to move right now.
Right.
And the person that gives you that advice has to give you that advice from a perspective of what is best for you.
That's it.
Not what is best for them, not what they think, some kind of fear tactic, right? What is best for you? And then you go from there. Okay?
Well said.
There's a lot of great agents out there. I interact with some really good ones. And I would encourage you to get a couple of opinions, right? I think in Rutherford County particularly, people, it's like agents are everywhere. Mm-hmm. So pick a couple, interact with them. Understand you're going to spend a lot of time with them. You're going to get life advice from them. You're going to get financial advice from them. So pick some that you think are doing it right. Pick some that you think know your particular sub-market and that are in it for your best interest, and listen to them.
There you go.
I would hope, and I would be honored if I was one of those people that got to speak with you. But there are some good ones out there, so it doesn't have to be me. Okay. And then the last piece of that is don't forget to pull in a knowledgeable local market lender like Bryan. And again, there's some others out there. I think that Bryan and myself make a fantastic team. Yeah. Bryan and my team make a great team. So whether it's me, Rabia, Brett, whatever, but get with somebody like Bryan that will work in tandem with your agent and will help you figure out and put the pieces in place to help you make a good move. That's the best advice I can give you.
Well said, man.
That's all I got.
All right.
Trent, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, man.
Good.
How about you?
It's all right.
I hear you.
It's all right.
Hanging in there?
Yep, we're getting the patio done at Cedar Glade.
Heck yeah.
It's looking awesome.
That's super exciting.
It's very exciting. So,
speaking of, go check out Cedar Glade.
You should. It's a good spot.
Yeah.
It's a good spot. We've worked really hard on that place. We'd love to host you.
That's an understatement. Cool, man. Good episode.
Well, thanks, bud. Thank you guys for watching.
Knowledge and numbers.
There's a lot of power in numbers for sure. So,
all right,
thanks for watching. Have a great week.